Yes, it's another Saturday, the 21st of August 2020. I was going to say 2021. This is John here from Badminton Talk Podcast, and this is
Mark Topping.
Mark Topping, how are you this Saturday morning in Dublin as I look at you here in the studio?
I am excellent, John. It's great not to be doing the Zooms anymore. We can do this face to face, much better.
Yes.
And how are you keeping?
Mark, great. I can just barely hold my breath because by the time this particular podcast is going to be aired, I will be in Spain, Spain.
You're a lucky man.
Not on a holiday, Mark.
Not on a holiday.
No, not a jolly.
Where are you going? What are you going to do? Where are you going to Spain, and why are you going to Spain?
Well, why I'm going is because just like Dylan last week, Sophia has her first tournament since March 2020. And she's playing a junior international series. To our listeners who may not know, that means all under 19 age are eligible. And we are flying to Bilbao, and then from Bilbao through kind of the north of Spain, Santander, to a place called Asturias.
Okay.
To play the under-19 Junior International Series. There'll be obviously a ton of Spanish players, French. She's teaming up with a Portuguese in the doubles. Yeah, she's excited. And Mark, you know, like all the players, they're training hard, so she's really excited. So by the time you listen to this, well, hopefully she'll be still playing.
Yes, yes.
If not, well, that's life, you know. Get on until the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope, well, John, let's wish both yourself and Sophia the best of luck out there. And I'm sure everybody will be rooting. So do keep us updated via social media on results.
Well, I will. And if you see somebody walking around with a Q shuttle piece of branding,
might be you.
You know that might be me, you know. So, thanks, Mark. It's and I'm sure, like all our listeners, some obviously outside of Ireland, they're back playing tournaments, and hopefully in Ireland it won't be too long away where they'll get a chance to play the first tournament. So, fingers crossed. But yeah, Mark. Right, we recorded our next guest on the Badminton Talk podcast a long time ago, and of course we have an introduction already, as you would say, in the can, put away. So, do you want to say anything else, Mark, before I introduce you introducing?
No, I think we'll just get straight into it, John. Why not?
Okay, so here we go. Let me first of all lower this kind of background music, and let's just click another button or two, and hopefully you will hear the sound of lightning. And here we go. Introduction to our next guest. Special guest.
This is John from Dublin. It's 11 o'clock. It's Badminton Talk Podcast. Mark, how are you doing?
Hey, John, I'm in great form. And did you have a good Paddy's Day?
Yeah, had a fantastic Paddy's Day. Weather was fantastic, wasn't it, Mark?
Oh, I enjoyed it immensely. Did a lot of walking yesterday.
Yeah, Mark, I hear you're training hard every day. You're still at it, yeah?
Oh, absolutely. It's just brilliant. It's great to have an opportunity to get physically strong. I'm really enjoying it, John.
Brilliant, Mark. Well, today is going to be a cracking podcast. Yes, we have a very, very special guest. So, Mark, you're going to get the opportunity today to introduce this special guest. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. Really looking forward to this podcast, John. This is just a special moment for me, a hero of mine.
A hero of Mark, and we're going to remember the date we're recording this, which is March 18th, 2021. Mark is going to introduce our next guest, and I'm going to, on behalf of Mark and myself, play a little music for about 10 or 15 seconds. I think this is relevant to our next guest, okay? So, here we go. Now heroes anymore. No more heroes anymore. Okay, Mark, that pretty good cue. Over to you. No more heroes anymore.
Thank you, John. Yeah, good musical pick. Well done.
Okay.
Well, today, obviously, I am very biased, but our guest today on the Badminton podcast, sponsored by the Q Shuttle, is my brother, Bruce Topping. Welcome, Bruce Topping, to the podcast. How are you?
I'm fine, Mike. How are you?
In great form. Anyway, I better give you a bit of a big introduction here, bruv. And then we'll get into the questions. We, as you know, Bruce, we're an absolutely sports-mad family. Our parents encouraged us to play as many different sports as possible. And Bruce excelled at many sports growing up. I'll give you some examples. He played for the Ulster Under-16 squash team.
Wow.
He represented the Irish Under-19 cricket team.
Wow.
He also played a few times for Lisnagavi First 11, one of the biggest hockey clubs in the country. So an absolute sporting all-rounder, incredible sportsman.
Even more sporting than Mark Topping. Sorry, Mark. That's a lot.
Absolutely, John. That's why he's one of my heroes. But today we're going to, on the Badminton Talk podcast, we're going to talk about Bruce's incredible badminton achievements.
Yeah.
Now, in my opinion, Bruce helped to revolutionise the approach taken to playing badminton in Ireland. Growing up and being privileged to watch how Bruce approached himself, making the best badminton player he could, three things really stood out for me.
Right.
The first thing I'll say about Bruce is that he has an incredible work ethic. He packs a huge amount into every single day, including physical training at his peak. He was incredible. I think Bruce picked this up from my dad. One of my dad's mottos in life is carpe diem, or when it's translated from Latin as seize the day. And that's what Bruce certainly does every single day. He seizes it.
Fantastic.
The second thing I noticed about Bruce growing up was an incredible attention to detail. He has a very high quality approach to every aspect of his preparation for badminton, especially when he was representing Ireland and Northern Ireland badminton teams. Now, as one small example, Bruce believed that high quality nutrition was incredibly important to his success. And I always remember he would spend a lot of time in the kitchen preparing very nutritious meals to ensure he was in top shape for his matches. So that's just one small example of the attention to detail that Bruce took in everything he did. And then probably the third most noticeable thing about Bruce, and again, I was privileged to be living in the same house and I could see this, was he had this very, what I would call, quiet, determined, competitive drive to play as good a match every single time he stepped on the badminton court. And I think this led to great consistency in Bruce's badminton career. Bruce was very unusual. He excelled and played all three disciplines. At that time, most people were saying, you're either a singles player or you can only play doubles. But Bruce was a complete all-rounder. He played extremely well in singles, men's doubles, and mixed doubles. To back that up, the official records would show that Bruce won 9 mixed doubles national titles.
Can you say that again? Say 9 mixed.
9 mixed. Although there may be, we'll get into that later.
Yeah, I'm just saying there could be some of our.
Bruce thinks he's won an extra one. He thinks he has 10.
Okay.
But the official records at the moment show 9. But possibly we'll have to investigate that a little bit more. So the official records show Bruce won 9 mixed doubles titles, national titles. He won 8 men's doubles titles. And he won 2 men's singles titles for a grand total of, officially at the moment, 19 Irish national titles, which easily puts him in the top 5 male badminton players of all time in Irish badminton. Long history of Irish badminton, over 100 years that
That's incredible.
Irish nationals have been going. So an exceptional record, an absolutely exceptional record. Also add to that, Bruce represented the Irish badminton team 107 times. In other words, 107 caps over...
Mark, I used to think you were great at 54 or 56, whatever the number. You're only half the ticket. 100.
I know.
I'm dealing with the wrong guy for the last few years. Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, you should have been talking to Bruce.
Oh my God! 100. Repeat that again. 106, 107, 100. How many caps?
107 caps for Ireland.
Oh my God!
Absolutely
incredible.
Amazing figure.
Brilliant.
And again, I would say there are very few people, male badminton players, who have got more caps than Bruce. I don't know the official records, but it must put him in the top 5 of all time again, I would have thought. Also, just don't forget, Bruce very proudly represented Northern Ireland in the Commonwealth Games.
Right, yes, of course.
He got to 4 Commonwealth Games. 1994 in Canada, 1998 in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, 2002 Manchester, and 2006 Melbourne, Australia. So 4 Commonwealth Games representing Northern Ireland, an absolutely incredible.
Well, we'll have to push that in again, Mark, on our button. That is outstanding. We normally throw this little sound emoji in when we have something outstanding. That is incredible. Sorry, Mark, you're doing the introduction.
Yeah.
So and keep it going. Maybe in our next podcast, Bruce will talk. But sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, I'm very biased, John. Obviously, he's my legendary brother, and I learned so much from his approach to badminton. He really did, in my view, revolutionise how we approached badminton at that time, and very professional approach to badminton, despite being holding down 9-to-5 jobs. So a man who is incredibly good at time management skills as well.
Yes.
Anyway, let's welcome Bruce.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Mark. Thank you for that big build-up. It's bringing back memories for me, and we certainly had a great time playing all those years together. Must have been a good 15 years playing in Irish badminton and longer in the youth years as well. So that's great.
Bruce, Bruce, I'd just like to welcome you too, because obviously it's wonderful to get to talk to you. I don't think we've spoken before. I've seen you at a few of the Badminton Premier Leagues. You've come up and supported them. And I did just a tiny bit of research on Google. Google's a great thing because, well, sometimes you might want to believe everything it says. But it does say that you retired at the age of 38. And I wanted to ask you, was that true? I'm not saying walked away from the game. We're going to ask you lots of questions on this Badminton Talk podcast. But have you been involved at all in badminton, just as a general question, since retiring? And I'm sure our listeners would be very curious to know that.
Yeah, I mean, the last big event that we were really preparing for was the Commonwealth Games. Mark and I went out to Australia, and I retired on my return from that. I'd love to have played on, but while I was out there, the physio noticed a few mobility issues with me, and I actually found out that I had really bad arthritis through it was my right hip at that time. So I had been struggling in training, and I was wondering why. I just thought, we're training so hard, I've got aches and pains. But it came back, and then just had a rest for a bit because it was coping with a lot of pain, quite a lot of painkillers. It took a year out from the game. didn't feel I could ever come back to play. But I went back and played a bit of cricket for fun. And then my hip got so bad I actually needed the hip replacement operation.
Okay, yeah.
A couple of years after that, about 2010, I actually came back and played some league badminton.
Wow.
And played the odd, I think I played a Masters tournament. And I really enjoyed it. I actually played quite well and I had a couple of seasons in league badminton, which was great. I enjoyed it. But the problem was I was getting more pain. It wasn't while I was playing, it was after. So, you struggle for 3 or 4 days after.
That's normal, Bruce, and Masters, I can tell you that. Even for those that think they're healthy. As in nobody aches, we all have them,
So unfortunately, and then again, my other hip started going, so I had that done very recently in 2019.
Wow, 2 hip
That's
operations.
not all that long ago, and I'm still working on building up the strength there and trying to get back to playing a bit of cricket. But I miss the badminton. I always thought I would have been involved with the game after that, but various reasons it didn't pan out.
Okay, well, maybe we can explore some of these, Mark and me. So, just to tell our listeners, that this podcast we have Bruce Topping. Mark says 19 Irish senior titles. There's debate: is it 20 or 21? I thought maybe 3 singles and 4 and 10 mixed. Bruce, not sure.
Yeah, well, what I'm definitely certain of is there were 10 mixed. Because I remember starting out with Anne Stevens, and we got to the 4th one, and Anne was going to be retiring that year, and it was a big target to get to the 5th because I think it was probably a record or close to a record at that time. So it was a big thing for us to do that, and there was a lot of talk about it at that time. So I definitely remember the 5 on the trot with Anne, and then I played 1 year with Claire Anderson.
Yes.
And then 1-4 with Jane, so I'm pretty sure it's 10. So I don't know, about the records there.
Well, the one thing, Bruce, I was looking at the Badminton Ireland website, and their records seem to run up to 2013. So they haven't been updated since. So anyone listening might just try to, a good opportunity to update the record books and also to have a look at the, go right back, because it would be great just to kind of see those 10 in a row and just re-edit that. So yes,
singles wise, I my memory is fading me on that, and I think maybe it was 2. But there's something in the back of my head thought I'd won another one, but I'm not sure on that. So it could be 20.
Okay, so Badminton Talk podcast sponsored by, as we know, the Q Shuttle. Mark, shall we get started? And you go and ask Bruce the first question. We've a long list of questions.
We've got quite a few questions, John. You're spot on. Anyway, question number 1, Bruce. How did you get started in the sport of badminton?
Yeah, well, probably the same way as you. We basically very lucky to have very sporty parents, and they both happened to play badminton, mum and dad. And we were actually brought up mostly in South Africa, born in Zimbabwe, but moved to South Africa when we were very young.
Wow! And
had a fantastic sporting life there. And badminton wasn't a big sport, but my mum and dad were very big into it, and they used to take us to the local hall in East London in South Africa, and they were passionate about it. So we spent a lot of time there watching them play to a fairly decent level. And then we used to run around and play on the hall. And it was a beautiful, beautiful old hall. As a kid, you remember the smells of the place. It was an old hall, with a dark green floor, sprung floor, and blackened windows. But there was a lovely acoustic sound to it. I can still remember the sounds and the smells of the place. And I think that's where a lot of people get started. Their parents take them along and they watch some really good badminton and messed around on the courts at the side. Not a lot of coaching, but we just competing against each other. And that's one of the great things, having an older brother to play with all the time is fantastic. And of course, we had that whole South African lifestyle. I think that's where we got into all our sports, very outdoors. And
Yes.
The schools were, they always put an equal emphasis on sport as academic achievement. So you because it was hot, you would start school early in the morning, but you'd be finished by midday. And there was always sport of some description after school, and everybody took part in it.
And the fact, Bruce, that it's very interesting telling our listeners about, you were born in South Africa, and that's where you started your sporting career. You're at a very young age, and coming from a country that is sporting mad. And, and Mark alluded to at the start about your talents in cricket and other sports. So why signal out badminton? Why did you like that sport? What was it that attracted you? Because clearly you had an absolute natural talent for it, amongst everything else, with what you achieved in the subsequent years.
Being brought into the sport from my mum and dad, they were passionate about it, so they were very competitive, and we just loved playing the game. But when I got a little bit older, and for me, I was a bit of a later starter to really, really focus on being serious about badminton, because I played a lot of other sports, but it was only really when I was 18 or 19.
Oh, wow.
I got big into badminton. But for me, I enjoyed the physical challenge. And there's lots of good things about badminton, the club play and the friends and all that, and that stuff's brilliant. But I specifically, when I was training hard, it was the physical side of it. I loved that feeling that you had a multi-feed session, just leaving nothing out on that court, and you overtrain yourself so that push yourself to the ultimate, so that actually the match situation wasn't as bad. But I loved the feel-good factor you got. Was it all the
endorphins kind of going through your body, Bruce, and that feeling of release of some amazing energy?
That's it, exactly. Any physical activity is good for everybody. To me, it was that physical pleasure. I enjoyed that challenge.
Brilliant. Okay. Sorry, Mark. Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, Bruce. That sort of leads me on to my next question, really. Our generation, there just wasn't as much money in the governing bodies back when we were playing. So we worked from 9 to 5. We had full-time jobs, and we had to get our training in around our work. We had to earn money. So that sort of led me to that question: how did you organise your training? How did you get your physical kicks? How did you go about it?
Obviously, I had different periods in my career. Sometimes the training was easier when I was younger because I was at college. I went to college in southwest London. So you have a bit more time when you're at university to maybe play during the day and train. But really, as I said, when I came in to start playing for Ireland, then I was in a full-time job. Very lucky to be in the same job for 20 years. A very good boss who was allowed time to travel and also to train. But in those early days, training-wise, it was very simple. You had to do your training in the morning. So I would do before work, maybe 3-4 times a week, either a run or a gym session, or some maybe interval training or circuit type training off court, and then any play was done in the evenings. Now, in the early part of my career, physically, I think you'll be able to cope with a lot more training. So I was doing an awful lot in the evenings, 4 or 5 times a week. As you get older, it doesn't make sense to push yourself that hard. You just physically haven't got the same abilities. So you'd probably be a bit smarter, a little bit less play and maybe more technical work, and not so physical. But there was always, an element of getting up very early in the morning to do work because there was no other alternative.
Yeah, Mark, are you listening to that? Bruce is after saying when you get a little older, you must ease off on the physical. Now, you're training for the Masters later on this year. You're training every day. Are you listening to your brother? Well, how much training are you doing, Mark, every day, isn't it? The yoga and the sprinting and the running? Yeah?
Yeah, I'm doing 3 hours every day. I actually think, the yoga is sort of the foundation that keeps me extremely flexible and my joints very mobile. So I can actually push myself a little bit. I wish, in fairness, I'd discovered yoga when I was in my 20s or in my teens. Very late to the yoga, but I think it's very beneficial for my age group.
Yeah,
which is.
Yeah, I wonder, just to ask Bruce, just before we go on to the next question, would you love to be 20 now? Would you love to be just, like, say, with the setup that's there now? It's better in a sense, there's more, and just to be going out with what you know, or you kind of feel, with what I know, I'm glad it's done and put in the can,
That's very interesting because back when we were playing, there weren't really full-time coaches, so you might get a little bit of help from here and there, and then Ireland maybe had a coach for a couple of years, and you would try and learn as much as you can, but in a respect, Jen, you're basically being self-taught, and I think it takes you longer then to learn the game, because you're doing it as you go, and I was learning how to train as I went, so, having a proper training program, so I just did what I thought was right. And then you can always reflect back on that and think, well, what could I have done better at the time? But when you're young, you don't necessarily think of that. It's only when I've finished I reflect back on, I was pleased with what I achieved, but what else could I have done to be better in the training? And I do think these days, it's a fabulous time for youngsters coming into sport at high elite performance, because before the days of internet, knowledge was not spread widely. Now coaches across the world in any country can access very high quality level of coaching and pass that on. So players these days have a backup of fantastic technical coaches. They may well have a separate physical trainer who understands the training that's needed for badminton specifically, because these guys are now going out saying, well, what type of sport do you play, and I need to tailor my training for you. And then having the nutritional impact, the mental side of the game as well. So it is a fantastic time, and really that's only started coming into Irish badminton, I would say, just as we were finishing. Over the years, we had full-time coaches for very short periods, but they were spread widely among a lot of players. But if you want to be world-class these days, you need a full support network to achieve it. So, and I think that's happening in Irish sport, but the problem is resources, isn't it? There's only so much money to go around in sport in Ireland. So, but you can see the results of full-time play, the way that the players have developed. Taking the game forward,
Yeah, I think Bruce, the conditions today, like you had to also focus on your career, also doing the badminton, as indeed the top players when you were playing also had to do. But today we have more blended learning, even with the COVID situation we've all been in over the last year. We're all getting maybe a little Zoom fatigued. We're all on Zoom here. I can see Bruce here with his headset looking very cool, and Mark as well. You know, you definitely know they're twins here on the on the podcast. I will share a picture of this on our social media here on my mobile badminton shop. But they're you know, Dan McGee, who's been very involved in with a lot of other important people in Badminton Ireland, have actually put a very good setup together, but made the point that the young juveniles today can, you know, do both. They can learn blendedly, maybe take a little longer for their careers to come into full fruition, so they can put in the full time into the badminton. And you've said, you know, the nutrition, strength and conditioning, these facilities are there. What we need for the resources, as you probably said there, Bruce, is we need, you know, some of these players to get medals, so more funding comes in. And medals means more funding, and funding is then divided into everyone.
It's a bit of a chicken and egg thing, that, because with limited resources, the Irish Sports Council are looking to fund people who are on medal opportunities. But really, to be a medal opportunity, you need to be starting 8, well, maybe 3 cycles before, or 4-year cycles, to be a medal hopeful. So you really need to be funding the 14-year-olds now who are going to be medal hopes in 3 Olympics times or 2 Olympics times.
Yeah.
But then what do you do with the existing players if there's not enough money to go in?
Yeah, and I think that's where I think that's where, Bruce, you do rely on, as you say, the parents and some sponsors to help the players out to, you know, travel to these events to because they, you know, if they're juveniles, they need somebody traveling with them, unless someone from the federation can go over there, and they already have their commitments. So usually it ends up very few really can make it because of I suppose the resources that aren't there. But things are getting better, and that's good. And I think if we get a little more success, we make more money, and then it can feed back in.
And there we have to leave the very first part of the interview with Mark Topping's brother, Bruce Topping. Mark, did that bring a tear to your eye?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say it brought a tear to my eye, John. But
I caught Mark by surprise.
It does bring back memories of just listening to Bruce talk of the training we did, of the hard work we put in to do the best that we could with the resources that we had. Yeah,
absolutely. I think for perhaps some of our very younger badminton players, they don't remember you on the courts because, you know, there's a few generations between them. You're still looking young there, Mark, I'm just saying. But, you know, I do recall yourself and Bruce, though, you were always up in that place near me, Whitehall Road, always at a competition. Anytime I stuck my head in, it was the Autumn Open, or if it was the Nationals, if they were held there. You were always there at the business end of the competition, all the time. And like, the numbers are outstanding, Mark. I mean, I've written down numbers. Okay, we start with 2 hip replacements.
Yes,
okay.
exactly.
Wow, that tells me a hell of a lot of badminton. The next number is, we're going to call it 20 titles. I'm not getting into debate, so we'll wait to see Badminton Ireland update the site, and we'll see what way the numbers look. But whether it's 19, 20 or 21, that's awesome. That's another awesome number.
It is incredible.
You know, like 10 mixed. Wow. 5 in a row with one player. 8 doubles, 2 singles. I know we're going to get more into this later on. They're amazing numbers, Mark. You know, and I know you're going to reveal a few wins with yourself too, but...
Yes, yeah, just great times, and just the professionalism Bruce had. I said it on the podcast, and I repeat it again. He revolutionised the way Irish badminton was played with his very meticulous professional approach to preparation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, another single-digit number, 4 Commonwealths. And his last one was Australia when he retired.
Yeah, 2006 in Melbourne, Australia.
Wow.
I was lucky enough to be his doubles partner for his very last international match.
God, my son was just born, 2006.
Wow.
There we go. That's how long ago that is in one way. Although, you know, those 16 years have flown. It's just a flash number that came up. 38 is another number. He retired at 38. That's a Roger Federer type of age. You know, he's moving 40. That's great to see. He said he started late, but 38's that's a good innings, Mark.
Yeah, he had longevity. He
definitely
kept going. He was persistent, tenacious, consistent, Bruce. And every match he was consistent. Bruce very rarely played a poor match. You could always rely on Bruce to play to a certain high level of play. He always played near his maximum performance.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does show how much talent he had, and probably still has, and he's brought that, I'm sure, into his career. 107 caps.
Yeah, and
now,
again,
that's an awesome.
That was the all-round aspect of Bruce.
Yeah.
I'd say the selectors loved Bruce because you put Bruce in the team. You have covered singles, you have men's doubles covered, and you had mixed doubles covered, and you then had flexibility in your team selection. And not only that, he was for a long time the top mixed doubles player in the country. For a long time, he was the top men's doubles with various different partners, and there were a lot of other good singles players, but Bruce was at a very high level. In particular in international badminton, Bruce seemed to be able to raise his level and give an outstanding performance in international matches. So the selectors would have loved Bruce because of the all-round abilities that he had.
Now I know why Michael O'Mara picked him as a partner. I tell you, that cute guy where is he, down in Nina somewhere? Well, look, he's listening in here, probably having his coffee there, reading his Irish Times now. We know you, Michael. Go on. You had a good pick there, you know, and then Mark unfortunately stole all the glory and proved it wasn't just you, was it? Mark had the talent as well with Bruce. No, we'll talk about Michael another day, another gentleman of the game.
Fantastic player, Michael O'Mara. Absolutely tremendous men's doubles player.
Yeah, and we wish him the best with the team going out to the Europeans in a couple of weeks, Mark.
The two head coaches are Mike O'Mara and Georgina Ward, flying out, I think, 30th of August for about 12 days to the European Under-17s in Slovenia. Good luck, Ireland. And Mike and Georgina.
Absolutely. Let's give it to them for a little look there. Come on, where is it? Yeah. I think they deserve that, Mark. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, there's no doubt you couldn't get two better in the game. Unless you're looking for gold, then you're talking about the Q shuttle, of course. Well, I thought that was a little cheeky there, John. Just before, obviously we're going to listen to Bruce over the next couple of weeks and the next month, and hopefully it's a good time, Mark, to have brought in Bruce, who really does define badminton, and hopefully we'll be able to redefine badminton on the courts in all over Ireland now that we're moving out of COVID. But something that he mentioned there towards the end of the interview, your thoughts. We should be funding 14-year-olds. That was a strong point. Younger players. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you can see where Bruce is coming from. It is such a competitive world out there. And realistically, we probably need to have that player pathway in place, or a plan in place. I'm not saying that there isn't a plan, and there's some really good people in the Sports Council of Ireland and Badminton Ireland, and I think people are very aware that you need to try and nurture that talent young and find the money to support it. But yeah, I get it. It's limited resources, and there has to be a pathway as well. The current players who are there representing Ireland need to be supported as well. But we need more money. We could double the budget and
double the budget. Yes,
and still probably need another doubling after that, John.
Yeah, well, I think success brings success, and we've no doubt, Nat's performance there in Tokyo will certainly spur on a lot of young players. I was only up in Whitehall Road yesterday looking, I think you were doing some coaching there with Sophia, was it? And beside was Sam coaching a very young player. He was only 6 or 5.
I was very impressed with that.
Wasn't he wonderful to see this?
For his size, he was was all very technical.
Very technical.
Right away. Well done, Sam McKay.
Yeah, maybe the next Nat coming up there in, God knows, another decade or decade and a half. But I think, there has to be a pathway found for young players to, if they're not in that talent pool and they have talent, to bring them along. I think that has to be a challenge that we all have to embrace, particularly when it's spotted. As indeed good old Dan, or good young Dan McGee spotted Nat, was it 10, 11 years ago, when he was only 10 or 11 or younger.
That's right. Dan was saying there on the RTE broadcasts that he spotted Nat in Baldoyle Badminton Centre all those years ago, and was immediately drawn to the hand-eye coordination of Nat and pushed to get or encouraged Nat to come in to the Badminton Ireland Academy fold. And look at the payback.
Absolutely.
Well done, Dan McGee.
Well,
the amount of work that went into that.
I think, Mark, another one of these is coming up. That's the third one. But well done, Dan McGee, and of course, everybody is starting to talk about the next Olympics, which is actually, Mark, interesting, only 3 years away. So, without deviating too much from this podcast, because we're near the end, but the start of the ranking points run up to the Olympics 2024 in Paris will start when? Beginning?
Usually there's like a year before the actual ranking points count.
Yeah.
But technically, all the top coaches in the world realise that it's really a 2-year plan. You really need to start playing 2 years out from the Olympics, so probably 2022, because you've got to get your ranking in a really good shape for the year that actually counts, for the 12 months just prior to the Olympics. You need to be you need to get your ranking as high as possible in order that you get good seedings and good positions in tournaments, and you qualify for major tournaments around the world.
So basically, anyone who's interested in competing or thinking about competing in Paris 2024, any of our listeners from all over the world, not just in Ireland, they need to be really looking at this calendar over the coming months to start planning it, Mark. It comes around quick.
I would say, you would be looking, if you feel you have the potential and you want to try and qualify for the Olympics, you probably are looking at mid-2022. You
Golly.
start playing some tournaments to get your ranking.
That's it just goes to show an Olympic cycle, you might think it's far out, but it comes quick in the end. This one even quicker, Mark, because it's only 3 years. But we're almost running out of time. So we just had one or two texts that come in just asking about that Spanish tournament, where it was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just to tell our listeners, if you are listening on this Saturday, the 21st of August, check out the Badminton Europe and Google it on YouTube, because my understanding is it will be on YouTube in Oviedo, Asturias in Spain. It runs from August 20th to August 22nd, with the semi-finals and finals on the Sunday itself. So that is for those listeners or anyone that's interested in looking at under-19s in action. It's great, Mark, to see badminton, and it was great to hear from Bruce Topping, Mark. Golly, we better not do such a long introduction the next time to give Bruce more airwaves. What do you think, Mark?
I did notice I went on a bit there on the introduction to Bruce, but then I'm biased.
Oh, well, Mark, I think you deserve it anyway as well. We'll also hear from you at some stage on the Badminton Talk podcast, sponsored here by, of course, the Q Shuttle. And thank you all for purchasing those Q Shuttles in recent times. What a tournament, not a tournament, Mark, what a practice training session a couple of weeks ago. That was great, wasn't it?
Oh, it was brilliant to get out into the Baldoyle Badminton Centre, and just a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and
a lot of fun.
We need those endorphins released and getting people out bashing shuttles at each other. It was just fabulous.
Yeah, and it was great also at that time hearing Norman Pontenosa helping us, blowing the whistle every 15 minutes for fun. What a fun event it was. It was great. So listen, Mark, have a great weekend. I'm sure you'll be tuning into YouTube and watching badminton over the weekend.
Yeah, can't wait to watch and support Sophia Noble out in Spain at the Under-19 Spanish International.
Okay, well, fingers crossed that she's there, but if not, enjoy whoever's there. See you, Mark, in another week's time.
Bye, John.